Hey, YouTube, Brian LCS, and welcome to the Comic Book Community 411. And my special guest tonight is Chris, the comic vet. Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Looking
Yeah,
forward to this. Very exciting. Very exciting.
yeah, it's good to have you. I mean, I'm trying to think. We've been on some streams together. We've been on
Yes.
some of your, milestones, and you've been on my channel, but I don't think we've ever really kind of sat down and did a kind of chat where it was just the two of us. So this is a good opportunity. I enjoy meeting other community members and really kind of getting to know them a little bit better. So
No, I've been looking forward to it ever since you asked me to come on. So yeah, it's been something I've been looking forward to all week.
cool, great. So why don't we jump right in? First question is, how did you get into comic books? How did you start collecting?
So I started with reading comic books obviously at a very young age. It was something that I was always attracted to. I ended up starting around 7, 8, 9, reading Archie's and Richie Rich and Casper the Friendly Ghost, those children-based comic books and
Yeah.
stuff that I was used to seeing, Saturday morning cartoons. And then my father really embraced it. I got to find out that my father was a comic book reader when he was in his youth, and that he really enjoyed westerns and cowboys and historical comic books like Davy Crockett and those type of comic books that were available in the late 50s when he was starting to read comic books out in the small province of Newfoundland off the east coast of Canada. He basically was in a small fishing village, and there would be a steamship that would visit his village a few times a year, and him and the other kids would basically be racing to get on this ship to get comic books and stuff.
Wow.
And so they would all buy different comic books individually, and once they were done reading them, they would trade with each other. And my dad would always be buying up those westerns, Hopalong Cassidy and Two Gun Kid and Kid Cold Outlaw and those type of comic books. And while the other kids would have been picking up superhero stuff. And eventually they started trading, and then my dad fell in love with Superman, and it went from there. So when I started asking for comic books that were a little bit more advanced, away from Richie Rich and Archie and stuff like that, my dad fully embraced it and would grab a book here and there off the spinner rack, either at the grocery store or at the local convenience store, and it went from there. Because I watched Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends in the early '80s and fell in love with the '60s cartoon, and seeing Christopher Reeve as Superman on the big screen, my two favorite comic books to get into was Superman and The Amazing Spider-Man. From there, I started realizing there was more than just one Spider-Man book. There was Peter Parker, the Spectacular
Oh
Spider-Man.
yeah.
So I graduated into that as well, and then I started noticing with Marvel specifically there was tie-ins with other comic books. So from the Amazing Spider-Man, I grew into the Fantastic Four, and the Fantastic Four was my first team book that I fell in love with. Especially during that era, it was John Byrne that was at the helm,
Mhm.
doing writing and the artwork as well. And then, like everyone else, I was discovering comic books in the mid to late '80s. I then moved into the Uncanny X-Men and started to realize the world of mutants. And being Canadian, I had this, connection to Wolverine. And that's about it. Just the fact that we're both Canadian, nothing else. And yeah, and it grew from there. Obviously, I fell in love with other comic books and then one shots, and then going back and realizing that I shouldn't be looking just specifically at artists as a reason why I would pick up a comic book. I should pay attention to the writers too. And that's why I discovered Swamp Thing and the Alan Moore run on Swamp Thing, and that magnificent run that he did, in the early '80s to the mid '80s to the later '80s, when he was, really at the time projecting environmentalism before it was even a cause,
Mhm.
and then falling in love with Constantine through Swamp Thing and his first appearance and storyline within that. And then along came The Killing Joke, And that changed everything for me, because then I discovered Batman and the Joker and what they could and what they were really all about, and all the allegories and hidden storylines within the Killing Joke. And even at that point, being 12, 13 years old, realizing that this is a masterwork, that this is something very special. And it went from there. Eventually, once high school was done and I moved into the military part of my life, comic books were away from me. And but it was still something that was always on my radar, whether it was through different mediums with television and movies. It was something that I would still talk to my dad about when he was alive. Talk about, like, it somehow it would always come back to different parts of it. Whatever we were talking about would go back to his home province of Newfoundland, and talking about his upbringing, and then one thing would lead to another. And one of the few things that we both had in common as children was the love of reading, and the love of reading comic books specifically. So I went a little bit longer than what I'm presuming
No,
you
that's
hoped I
great.
would, but yeah, that's my introduction to comic book reading. And then realizing, even at that point, around 12, 13, that I need to take care of these things, that this could be something down the road. And bagged and boarded the entire way through. So all the early ASMs from like 250 on through the McFarlane time and into the Larson time. Even at that point, as a kid, I was bagging and boarding, realizing there might be something here. These are not 9.8s by any stretch of the
Right.
imagination, because these books were read and traded and lent out to other kids that wanted to read them, because I would bring them to school, to be honest with you, and trade if my dad picked up a book that I already had as a surprise. Well, then I could trade the one that I already had, and then keep the one that my dad got me, because it would be
Better shape. Yeah.
much better shape. So, but yeah, it's first it was the love of reading, and then I started to realize that you need to take care of these things. And I realized quickly that I was a collector as well.
Okay. That's good. I mean, I I've heard bits and pieces of your story. I know I've heard you speak about your dad
Yeah,
and his love for collecting and comics, but I've never heard like the full story. So it's good to kind of take all the little bits and pieces that I've heard, and now hear you tell me the
right.
complete history, which is good. My
Thank you.
dad was a big reader too. He loved
Wonderful.
history. He never really collected comics though. He read
Yep.
comics. He
Yep.
used to go, if he was out with my grandmother shopping when he was young, he would stand by the magazine rack and just read while they were out shopping. But he never collected. But
Guilty.
he, yeah, exactly. Always, and that was the thing in the '80s. Any convenience store, you could, 7-Eleven, anywhere there was a magazine rack, you could find comic books. And that's where I picked up, when I first started collecting, that's where I picked up most of my books, just from the local 7-Eleven.
Right. So has it always been the Marvel franchise for you right from the get-go?
No, I really was hooked on Adam West Batman.
Okay.
That that's really how I got started into superheroes. I used to
Yep.
watch that as like a 4 or 5 year old,
Yep.
and then I wanted the toys at the time, the Mego toys, and then I discovered Spider Man, and then I was hooked on Marvel as because of Spider Man.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's funny, but I've always had a love for Batman because he was really my first introduction to a superhero.
I get it, and that's why I still have an incredible amount of respect for Superman. And I have often said over the last while, Superman needs a writer that understands Superman. And Superman is not supposed to be like a dumb character. He's not supposed to be, Superman's supposed to be a very highly intelligent, all powerful being that doesn't want to even consider looking at where the line is, for him to cross that line, because in his heart it's supposed to be all about kindness and helping humanity. And that's why I've often struggled with reading superhero book or Superman books in particular, that there, I just felt like there's not a good fit necessarily. But that's why I'm enjoying to run on Action Comics right now, where it seems like Superman finally has a good writer, and we're getting some very respectable Superman stories. So I understand what you're saying with your love for Batman being your introduction. For me, it was Christopher Reeve on the big screen and starting to read Superman comic books, which eventually led me into reading ASM, and then realizing that at almost at every level there's something to do with Spider-Man on almost every medium outside of films themselves.
No,
You know,
sure.
I can remember that season we had of Spider-Man on TV in the late 70s there, and then obviously the cartoon, and there's always been a Spider-Man cartoon on TV where and when I was growing up. It's just a question, is it new stuff or is it repeats? And at that point I didn't really care because it was really, really cool to look at. And
Oh yeah.
that catchy theme song too.
Stuck in your head. You can't,
Stuck in your head, an
everybody
earworm, and
knows
it's
it.
there. Yeah.
So how did you make the jump to, collecting and then saying, "Hey, I want to make a YouTube channel. I want to put this, I want to start making videos."
So I really struggled with the idea of going to YouTube. My girlfriend really pushed me. She's like, "You could do it," like, because we'd sit around and just watch mystery box unboxings, and I'd basically be talking to the TV like, "That's a good book." He doesn't even realize that's a hit, or like whatever it is I was watching, like, and then she'd be like, "Well, you could do that." I'm like, "What? No, like, come on." No one would be interested in what I have to say. And then, being told that, like, look, Chris, you're actually a little bit of a storyteller, and reminding me that before YouTube, I used to have a blog based on autographing and sports autographs,
Oh,
and
okay.
that my blog actually in turn got picked up by some Canadian local sports collectible magazines and got published. And then I thought, okay, well, that's just written word and adding some pictures here and there throughout a blog. Like, anyone can do that. YouTube's a little bit different. And I decided blindly, with no one knowing, to try it out. And what I did was, much like a lot of people, from what I understand, is I actually just, when I received a comment, like I would pick up an exclusive online. And once it came, I would basically just have my phone over top of what I'm doing, not showing my face, and just speaking a little bit into my phone, and just basically just show an unboxing. And when I got like 5 views, I thought that was incredible, incredible. And it kind of grew a little bit. I got a little bit more confident and decided, okay, well, I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to show my face and go from there. And I decided, well, I'm keeping this a secret. I'm going to try it in my car because I know my car has good acoustics. I, 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 I actually built the car that I because I worked for Toyota for a dozen years, and I drive a Corolla, and I had a hand in building my car. So I knew what it was capable of doing, and I had a pretty good phone, so I decided to give it a go and recorded basically a new comic book day haul, and decided to put it up there. And one video turned into another, which turned into another, which turned into another. And then it became a little bit more than just new comic book day hauls. It would be like, I just got this book in from Mutant Beaver. I just got this book in from Frankie's Comics. Or I just picked up this South African ASM. Let's talk about it. And let's look inside and see the ads that are going on in South Africa in the late 70s and early 80s, and see if you can actually tell that apartheid was represented in this comic book. And let's talk about that. And it just grew from there. And then over a while, I started having certain members of the community that you're aware of reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'd like you to come live on my channel." And I was dumbfounded, Brian, dumbfounded. I couldn't understand it. And I thought, like, aren't we all in competition with each other? Like, is it not me against you? And you're in the United States and you have a population of 400,000, or pardon me, 400 million people that that could tune you in. I didn't even realize that it wasn't. I thought it was even just regional or national,
Oh, okay.
and it really opened my eyes to how wrong I was. I was so wrong, and I know that you know how embracing that this beautiful and wonderful comic book community truly is, and that it's not something where we're in competition with each other by any stretch of the imagination. There might be some gentle ribbing here and there,
Yes.
about certain things, but I still wasn't ready to make that step to go live on someone else's channel. Like, what would I talk about? Why would you want to talk to me? Like, I didn't understand it. And then a couple comic book community members just basically said, look, man, like, you talk a lot about comic books, like on your new comic book day, you're talking about what you're reading. That's what I would like to do. And, I would help promote your channel because I have more subscribers than what you do. And I kind of looked at him like, what does that even mean? I thought it was just about views, and I got like 30 views on one video, and I thought that was terrific. It is terrific. Anyone that would want to actually sit down and watch what you have to say, it's terrific. And then one thing led to another, and Slotted Up 503 basically gave me an invitation to go on his channel in a very larger panel, and we were just talking about comic books. So I went, and I'll never forget. And he said, and here's a guy who knows a lot about comic books, and he's from Canada, and his name is Chris, the comic vet. And he popped me up, and I saluted, and I just said, hello, everyone. And then a few days later, I got that same invitation from Mark from Legion of Comics to go on his channel on a Sunday night to talk about the books that I just picked up from this new comic book day. And he wanted to know my opinion on stuff that I was reading. And I really had a hard time. I really had a hard time wanting, or if I read a book that I didn't enjoy, I had a hard time trying to be honest about the fact that I didn't like it, because I didn't want to disappoint the people that were on this panel. And one thing led to another. I started to become a little bit more natural with it. And Mark basically reached out a short while later and said, hey, I kind of want it to be just like the three of us every Sunday night. What do you think? And I was blown away. Like, you want me to be a regular and something that's a part of your constant? And yeah, and ever since, it's been every Sunday night at week's end, myself, Mark, and Ryan, new guy from the Cosmic Campfire. And we sometimes, often, like, one of us can't make it for whatever reason, or Mark will have more people come on if there's a little bit of a bigger event, like if there's a big film that gets dropped or whatever, and Mark's going to want to try and get as many opinions as he wants. And I thought that was a wonderful experience, so much so that I thought, hey, every Wednesday, why don't I try something like this? But why don't I just have it as an open invitation? And why don't I just invite people to come on to show the comic books that they just picked up, whether it's, a regular or a variant or an exclusive or a ratio or whatever. Let's see if I can catch lightning in a bottle too, and see if people would be interested in coming on and talking to me and showing me and showing everyone that would be interested to tuning in and to my channel to show the books that they just picked up. And it's been, something that I thought that would belly flop, but every week at 7:30 my time, I hit that live button and never know who's going to come, if
Right.
anyone's going to show up. And God bless them, I have yet to have an episode where no one shows up. Someone always wants to come on, and thankfully I have some regulars, Digger Jim and Rob Fat Stacks and Taylor Winder and Mark himself from Legion of Comics, and often then there's sporadically a little bit a little bit less frequent than what they do. You have Beckerman and Austin LeMay and Nick's Kicks and Comics, and forgive me if there's others that I'm forgetting, Flash by Night, TJ, and these guys will sporadically come on and they'll show the books that they just picked up for New Comic Book Day. And then afterwards we'll talk about something that's really relevant when it comes to, say, Disney Plus or other television shows, or a trailer that just dropped.
Right.
And to make a long story short, in a span of just over a year, I went from just doing this to hosting something that seems to be pretty constant every Wednesday. And it's been an incredible journey of just little baby steps every step of the way. Like, not everything works out well, but when it does, it feels so good because so many people seem to have a hand in it, and that's what's so special about this comic book community.
Oh, and I've had a similar experience, and I think
Yes.
I'm trying to think. Probably my first video I think I've ever saw of yours was a new comic book day. You were sitting in your car showing your books, and I saw it, and I'm like, this guy is so excited about his books. He's in the parking lot of his LCS showing
It's
his
true.
books, and I was like, this is great. Like he can't even
Yeah.
wait till he gets home. He
Yeah.
just wants to show everybody,
Yeah. And
what he got.
the and Brian, the genesis of all that is I was doing what I do. I'm a supervisor by trade. For At the time when I was doing those basically lunchtime in my car, new comic book day hauls, I was on a straight shift of afternoons. So basically, I would hit my LCS when they opened, and I would go live around 12:30, 1 o'clock, and I would show my books, and then turn around and go to work.
Right.
And then since then, I was given a new opportunity to where I am at this moment. There is going to be a new change in my life from where I am right now in the very near future. But this one is more of a day shift. So that then gave me or that then killed off the whole idea of going live from my car at lunchtime. Now I can come home and turn on the computer and go live at 7:30, and then, presuming most people work these same hours, then if they want, it's an open invitation. They can come on Wednesdays and chat and show off the books that they just picked up.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think Mark's channel may have been the first channel that I went on
Yeah.
live, and same thing. It was a great experience. Like, and same, oh, somebody wants to talk to me about comic books or hear my opinion.
Yes.
Um, so that's why I always appreciate when people watch and comment and like videos, because they're taking time out of
Yeah.
their day or night or whenever they're watching to spend some time with you or to hear what you have to say. So it's definitely um, interesting, but a little humbling too, to say, "Wow, somebody wants to
Oh yeah.
spend time with me." So,
Yeah.
which is
I try to address that every single time, whether it's a video or a live stream. Like, just thank you for your time. Like, it's the kindest thing you can do is listen to what I have to say. Whether you're there for a 5-minute video, whether you're there for the full 5 minutes, or you're there just jumping through to take a look at what's the heart of the video, and then leave a comment. To me, that's the greatest thing anyone can do. It's so kind, and that's why I always try to respond to every single comment that gets left on my video, whether it's a negative or positive one. I always
right.
want to respond, and thankfully, like 99% of the time, it's always
Positive.
kind words. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, and discovering Gary B, the casual comic guy, his the Grow Together initiative.
Yeah.
There's kind of certain things that you kind of latch on to that I did, and I think many of us have when we
Yes.
started, and you start watching other channels with promoting or shouting out other channels, and like you said,
Mind blowing.
thanking
That was
people.
so mind blowing. Like,
Yeah.
you're doing what?
uh,
But yeah.
Now, what about a character or a comic book? And I think you may have answered this with your Superman before, but if you had control of a character or a current or a character we haven't seen in a while that you could rewrite, reboot, do something new with,
Ooh.
who would you tackle?
I don't know if I would want to do the Big Blue Angels. Superman is, like I
Yeah,
said, he's hard. He's a hard character to nail, and I don't know. I really feel like it's been a long time since we've had a good Spider-Man story that people can talk about. I know last year, and I know that you're fully aware of it, that there was an excellent What If story by Chip Zdarsky. What if, and it was called Spider Shadow. What if
Yes.
Spider-Man held on to the black symbiote suit and that Eddie Brock didn't get it? What would have happened? And to me, that was an interesting take. But then again, it was a what if. And it's been a long time since we, in my opinion, we've had a good grassroots level Spider-Man story, where whether it's he's dealing with, say, children or something at that level. It's always been the writers are just trying to, how can we torment Peter even more? How can we ruin his life upside
Yeah.
down? It's been a while since we've had just a true Peter in the suit story dealing with something at the grassroots level that could be relatable. Now, I know that for me, the death of Kraven and Kraven's Last Hunt is arguably the best Spider-Man story ever written. There was a graphic novel in the early '80s, The Amazing Spider-Man Hooky. That was also another
Oh yeah.
really good Spider-Man story. But they've been few and far between ever since. I know, much like yourself, Spider-Man fans are dedicated. We'll go out, we'll pick up ASM month after month. It doesn't matter who's at the helm or what the artwork looks like, or how preposterous this storyline is. We're we're suckers for the franchise, and same thing with Batman with DC. Except Batman's had some really good writers in the last 10-15 years. But Snyder comes to mind with The Court of Owls, another fantastic story. But I would love, even if they gave me like a Web of Spider-Man or Spectacular Spider-Man, if I were to give to write a comic book, even if it was just a one shot or say a three issue limited series, it would be Spider-Man, and it would be something more at definitely a grassroots level, away from supervillains. It could be him hanging out, over the docks or in New York City, Manhattan, and seeing a container arrive on a ship and people inside of it, and dealing with a human smuggling storyline. It could
Right.
be
Trafficking.
something like
Yeah.
just something totally different outside the wheelhouse of what we're used to with Marvel's franchise. And I would hope that it would be received, because it would be like, if I were to helm it, it'd be away from super villains. It would be, something that would be grander, but something that he can help immediately, and then try and do a little bit of, detective work that way, and try and shut down the entire organization at that point. And then maybe have the Kingpin, of course, tied into it somehow. Wilson Fisk is such an interesting
Some
character.
street level crime is always
Yeah,
good, right?
yeah,
Yeah, and that it's interesting. We only really have Amazing Spider-Man as the ongoing title. And
right,
I collected. Started in the '80s as well. So
right,
we had Spectacular, we had Amazing Spectacular, then we had Web, then
right,
we had the McFarlane Spider-Man series.
right.
So there were a lot of different storylines, but I remember those being and the Last Hunt, like you said, was a could be the best Spider-Man story. But I think I would be fearful today if we had multiple ongoing titles of Spider-Man, because, like you said, the Amazing Spider-Man just has been, very hit or miss. And so now if you're trying to spread, and, we do have a lot of limited series, Savage Spider-Man's out right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nonstop.
So that was one
Yeah,
that I read the first issue and just gave up on. I was like, what?
I actually ripped it up. This is
Yeah.
so
I was like,
atrocious. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
So, I mean, I'm glad that we only have one title. But I agree. I think we need, some consistency. I like Zeb Wells' writing in Volume 5 and some of the issues that he did. So I'm hopeful that this storyline, the current storyline, is going to get better. But the
it's got
fact
room
that
to grow.
yes, the fact that we had kind of a good point for him at the end of Volume 5, the Gleason run, and then they blew it. A month later they blew it up again.
Yeah,
So it was just
yeah. I
it,
gotta
it
admit, I did enjoy the that whole saga with Ben Ben in the suit, and dealing with the Beyond Corporation. I thought it
okay,
was
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought
No, that was
I
good.
thought it was
That was better.
good. I thought it was good, not great, a little bit better than okay, because we got the Queen Goblin out of it, and I actually really liked that villain, and I hope that they do something with her. But we're 3 issues in as we talk about this, we're 3 issues into this new volume with ASM, and there's only been one issue that I thought was great. So we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
there's room to grow. The one thing that I did, just to tack on to a little bit of your final question, DC's on to something as far as I'm concerned with the Black Label line that they have. These little bit more oversized prestige comic books where the writers have a little bit more freedom. It's an outside story that's not tied into the continuity. Marvel had that, in the 80s with the Marvel graphic novels. And
Right.
I really wish Marvel would come back and put Peter Parker in that, or even Miles. Like, I gotta admit, I read Miles monthly as well, and it's so much better than what we were getting with the last volume of ASM. But I really think Marvel, if they were to mimic what DC is doing with the Black Label line and gave Spider-Man 1 or 2 or 3 stories similar to what's happening with DC Black Label with Rogues, that Flash book that came out last month, or with Swamp Thing Green Hell, or the insert Batman title A or B here. I thought if Marvel were to do something like that and put Spider-Man in there, or the Hulk, some of the franchisable household name characters, they could be onto something. Just slap that mature reader emblem on there, and then this could be something where a year from now you and I could be talking about, like, my God, I can't believe that we've had, like, this is a Spider-Man story we've been waiting for.
Right. Right.
And yeah, it's coming. I feel like there's a good Spider-Man story coming. It's got to be.
I hope so. I hope so. Now, what about it could be the comic book community on YouTube or collecting in general. What is one of your biggest dislikes or complaints about collecting, or, like I said, even the community?
It's hard for me to say something negative about the community because, Paul from Sector 2815, he was on Slab Hub, a show that I co-host with Rob's Fat Stacks on Saturdays, where we talk about slabs that people have in their collection and the journey that they've taken picking up those particular slabs comic books. He pulled out a very early, I think I have it close by, a very early World's Finest from the early 50s, where it features Superman and Batman and a cowboy, and the cowboy is riding a horse. And he showed that book, and it took me back instantly to a moment where my dad was talking about a comic book where he remembers a cowboy being on the cover with Superman and Batman, and lo and behold, it was this World's Finest.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And what did Paul do after he showed the book and he went to put it down? And I said, actually, hold on to that book. I have a story. And I told the story that my late father, this is a book that he talked to me about. It was a book that he had, and it was the only time that he can remember where in that book there's a superhero story, a Western story, and all of it going on, and that he held on to it, but he can't remember what happened to it. And I told that story, and I had to take a little bit of a break because when I talk about my dad and that kind of thing, I can get emotional. And what does Paul do? Paul sends that slab to me and says that this book is better off in your hands than what it is mine. And I get a little emotional just saying that incredible act of kind. I couldn't imagine something like that. And lo and behold, this man who I've never met, I've only shared screen time with, like how you and I are right now, would do something so incredibly kind. Like it's a 4.5 World's Finest from the early 50s, and he gave it away.
And I happened to watch that. I was watching. I usually watch Slab Hub, and I was watching that. Heard you tell the story, and then I guess a week or so later, watching your video of you unboxing it, and it was just like, it totally blew me away. Watching it, that like you said, to think that somebody would be just a random person that you said you really don't know just randomly, giving you a book like that.
So yeah, it's sitting within arm's reach, just like what my Amazing Spider-Man #1 is. It'll always be close by whenever I'm doing this. It's those kind of things that I'll always have close by. So to answer your question, I can't say anything negative
Hmm.
about the community because, like I said earlier, yeah, there's some jabbing and some
Oh,
ribbing, but
sure. Yeah.
it's people being people having a
Right.
good time,
Right.
trying to have a laugh. But the negative thing I can say about collecting is variance. Like everyone else, I often get caught up with FOMO, and I don't want to miss out on something. Whenever if it's an Arthur Adams cover or a Jenny Frison cover or Jock, and or even Todd himself, uh, it's the variants that to me have spun this negative aura about the community right now. Whereas uh, you'll have a particular cover done, say, by Jenny Frison for Something Is Killing the Children, one of my favorite stories. And she'll make a cover and it's epic and it's portraying Erica Slaughter in a very positive light, not being sexualized or anything like that. And it's just Erica kicking butt. And it's a 1 in 50. And the only way I can get my hands on it is by spending $50.
Right.
And being Canadian, well, I'm gonna have to spend $50 US, which means it's gonna be about 65 or 70 Canadian. Then I gotta get it shipped and the whole 9 yards. And I do this, and then 3 months later, guess what? It's $5 on eBay. And it's it may not that drastic, but
Right. Right.
and
But
then it's chasing the variants that where in my heart I'm still a reader first. I'm like books I pick up on New Comic Book Day, I'm still reading them. And I'm going cover to cover and I'm reading the ads and I'm looking at the back cover and I'm enjoying that book for everything that it's worth. Everything that the publisher put in it, I try to give a little bit of time to because I spent my hard-earned money on this book. So I'm going to want to see everything that's in it. I'm not going to flip over something just because it's another ad for another Batman book that's coming out 3 months from now. I'm going to pay attention to it because that's who I am at my core. And yeah, it's the chasing of those variants that of artists that I enjoy that for whatever reason it's kind of being milked, like, oh, we have the new Jock, but if you want this Action Comics, so it's Superman opening his shirt done by Jock, well, we have it at $30 and that's the best you're going to do. Or you can go buy the Action Comics and read the book for $4 or $5, but you're not going to have the cover that you think is stunning. So I hope I answered your question, but even
yeah,
then,
no, that makes sense.
I do, I do participate in getting some of those special covers because if it's a book that I thoroughly enjoy, I don't care what anyone thinks. Because if it's Something Is Killing the Children and someone's not enjoying it, so be it. But I am a fan of, say, Jenny Frison, and she's done this great cover. Well, I'm going to pick up that cover and my reader copy, and I'm going to enjoy both of them.
Yeah, collecting in the '80s was a lot easier because you had 12 issues a year. They were published once a month. You had an annual, no variant covers, and it was easy. Like I look back at my Spider-Man collection from that time frame, and I probably had like 100 issues. So probably similar to you, where you said right around like probably 230, 240 up to about 350. But that covered like 9 years because there 100 issues is 12 issues a year.
Yeah.
So back then, now they're publishing twice a month or and then all the variant covers. It's a different world
Now,
than it was.
from a publishing standpoint, I get it. They're not putting out the numbers that they put out in the '80s. Like the numbers that they were selling comic books with, outweigh what they're doing today. So how they try and recoup money is obviously with the variant covers. I get that, and but it's tough on the wallet.
Oh, sure.
I'm not spending my mom and dad's money anymore. I'm spending my own money.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. I'm at the point where I'm starting to pull back on some of the covers and just trying to get the A cover, and then only buy that really special cover, once in a while,
Right.
because yeah, even with Amazing Spider-Man, we've had the reboot, the issue 74, and they're higher priced, and then they've got all these great variant covers. So it's like a dog chasing your tail. You're
Right.
constantly trying to
I
get
I
those
get it.
books.
I get it. And then often then there's those variants that seem to have a constant theme, like the Gleason web heads that Spider-Man fans have been uh, delving into. It can be challenging. It can be challenging and frustrating too. But
Yeah,
it it's tough to say that it's a true negative thing because I understand, like I said, from the publisher standpoint, they're trying to make as much money as they can to keep
sure.
it going because the medium is not what it was, in the 80s and especially in the 90s when everything was just oversaturated. Uh, but it to find something negative, I would just have to say it's tough when the variants that you really like are so much more money. That's the point. That's my problem with it. Never mind how difficult it is to find them. It's once you do find them, and I don't even mean on the secondary market. I mean those online
Yeah, even the
exclusive
primary.
distributors.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
directly
they
is. Yeah,
yeah, even then it's 20, 30, even $50 sometimes just for a shorter printed variant that's not even considered a ratio.
yeah. And when I got back into collecting just a couple of years ago, I
Yeah,
I had no idea, and so I heard people talking about this ratio, this incentive cover, and I was like, what are you talking about? I had
right,
no, because that wasn't a thing, when I originally collected. So it was like
right.
it was a learning curve, grading now, and it just
Yeah,
it totally changed compared
yeah,
to back then. So
yes. I can remember, going to that like 7-Eleven and seeing the spinner rack and seeing a Spider-Man title, regardless if it was, Peter Parker or Webb or Amazing, and just grabbing it and going. Whereas now I'm like, I find myself looking like, could this qualify as a 9.8?
oh
you know, grading has changed that part of the grading
yeah,
has even
oh
changed
yeah.
that part of me as well. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm the same. You're picking up books and you're looking at the corners and the
yeah,
the spine. Yeah,
yeah.
it's certainly changed the way we collect for sure.
Yeah, and the only thing I noticed as a kid, whether it was a direct edition or if it had that UPC code, and even then I was like, I don't really care.
Right, right. I
It's
just want
I
the
gotta
book.
get this one before
Yeah.
before they're all gone. This one has the
So
Beyonder in it.
yeah, no, and I remember news picking up books and I, trying to buy a book that was in good condition, but like you said, you didn't really care. You wanted the story, you wanted the art. You didn't
Yeah,
you weren't really you were. I was aware pretty early on that like you said, books could be worth more money down the road. That you should take care of them as best you can. Put them in bags, board them, those type of things, but when you're initially it was just I would just want to read the Spider-Man story.
we got a lot in common, you and I.
So, and I think you answered it a little bit earlier, but this was a question I wanted to ask was, 'cause is Spider-Man clearly your favorite character?
Oh, above and beyond, it's
Right.
it's not even close. So
Okay.
much so that I got the kid
Yes.
tattooed on
Okay.
my arm. But yeah,
So,
it's yeah, he's
well,
my
why?
favorite
How
superhero,
did
but
that
it's not
happen?
my favorite comic book. How did that happen?
Yeah. So, how did you? What was the thing that? Because for me, the reason why I'm so tied to Spider-Man is because I grew up in New York. So when I was a
Oh,
kid, when I was 4 or 5 years old, he was lived in Queens and he was swinging around Manhattan. So as a 4-year-old, I thought I could drive into the city and go find, see him.
yeah,
I could find him.
like he's here. Uh, no, for me, it was a little bit different. Uh, to be honest, Brian, I'm 6'1". I'm 240 pounds. I'm a big guy, as some people would say. But that came much later in my life. It was like 17 before I started growing. So I was always that tiny that short kid, in the class picture. I was always the one standing beside the teacher because I was the little guy, even right through, uh, grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, and then into high school. My mom tells a story that she dropped me off for my first day at high school for grade 9, and I was literally the smallest kid going in, and she thought I was going to get trampled. So with that being the small kid, there was, the bullying and getting picked on and that kind of thing, and growing up relatively poor, to be honest with you, and going to a school that was a little bit tougher. I know what everyone's thinking. Canada, yeah, but Canada, that doesn't mean that we're not afraid that Canada doesn't suffer from the same, social constraints that the United States does as well when it comes to tiering classes and that type of thing, and especially at the, the type of school where you're growing, where you go to based on your community and growing up in a poor community. So I got bullied and picked on, and I can remember watching that 60s cartoon and seeing before Peter got bit that he was picked on too. And so there was that little bit, hey, we got that little bit in common, that you're the kid, or he's the kid that's awkward and not socially accepted. When I got to read the stories about, the high school years and the college years of Peter Parker, that yeah, he may have had a girlfriend, but that doesn't mean he had a lot of friends. He only had like Mr. Osborn as a friend, to be honest.
Right.
And so that to me was incredibly relatable. And then, then it became like, so all that happened to him was he got bit by a radioactive spider, and he goes out and he does all these nice and cool and kind things for people. And he still goes home and he's poor and he's living with his older aunt, and like he still has no money, so he has to be a freelance photographer. Like I could do that, I could take pictures, and so that I found relatable, and it just, for me, it just clicked. Whether it was that 60s cartoon that led me down that avenue, or reading off in the early 240s with ASM, with that total gang war, with featuring the Hobgoblin and Kingpin. The final time, or where JR was actually I believe doing some of the pencil work for that at that point. Whether it was there, and then going back and finding old treasuries in my school library and reading those old Spider-Man books where Stan and then Steve Ditko and then into John Romita Sr. were doing it, and reading all those stories for free, and realizing like I like to think I got a lot in common with Peter Parker, except he gets to hang out late at night and,
Right.
and do all this cool stuff. So yeah, like Superman, the fact that he was just naturally good is what hooked me into superheroes. But it was Spider-Man that I found relatable, because he didn't have a lot of money and he was picked on in school, and that he wasn't the cool kid at school. And that's something that I found very relatable. And so that's probably why I just haven't given up on the characters, because it's just something that was just ingrained at such an early age.
Yeah, no, that relatability, I think, that was really what made Spider-Man as popular as he is,
Yeah.
because of the Peter Parker side, right?
Right.
The troubles that he was dealing with personally and at school and financially. And yeah, I know that was attractive to me reading the character early on, as well as I got a little bit older and realized, all right, there isn't a Spider-Man that swings around New York City. Um,
Sadly.
but then it's really this, the human side, the Peter Parker side. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
And things, he suffered great losses along the way. It's not like
Oh, sure.
it's not like it's been a smooth road, like Uncle Ben and then Gwen and you name it. There's been bumps along the road that have been legendary bumps, and smaller bumps too, the whole Brand New Day stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and when I started rereading, when I got back into collecting and reading Spider-Man again, I'm like, all right, he's a little bit older now. He should have learned some things. And, then the first, the first couple issues of the Gleason run, he's having trouble paying the rent. And I'm like, wait a minute. he still hasn't figured this out. So it
Yeah.
was funny and disappointing all at the same time. Like, wow, he's still down on his luck, you know. So
Oh, Peter.
yeah.
Oh, Peter.
So my last question is going to be a total random question. So I have a list of 50 questions. So I'm going to ask you to just give me a number, 1 through 50, 1 to 50. Just give me a number, whatever wherever we land, that'll be the question. The question I
Okay.
ask.
Let's try 21.
21. All right, this is a pretty easy one. What is your favorite way to unwind?
What is my favorite way to unwind? Uh, Smoke a cigar.
Okay, there you're going to say comic books.
Uh, well,
That's
they
a
can be
given,
very,
right?
they can be, yeah, they can be, a source of tension.
Well, that's true. Could be
But
frustrating.
no, a lot of people, some people in the comic book community may know, some may not, that I am actually a cigar connoisseur. I enjoy a fine cigar, whether it's American or Cuban or Nicaraguan or Honduran. I am a brother to the leaf, and I enjoy a nice cigar, and I am not afraid to spend a little bit of money on a very nice stick. I've traveled all over the United States, visiting different cigar lounges with a couple of close friends of mine. That's something that we try to do annually, and go to different cigar events, like how we have Comic Cons. It's the same thing with cigars, and the one thing I like to say, Brian, when it comes to a cigar, there's always a story over a cigar when you have a cigar with a friend. And that's a very, very important thing that I find about having cigars. I try to have a cigar with someone. So if you and I were having a cigar, we have an hour of a great conversation. And at the end of the day, or at the end of the month, you would look back and you would be able to remember, oh, I had this great conversation with Chris. And also, there was a cigar in.
Okay.
I like to unwind with a nice cigar.
Nice. Now, Southpaw Brad, he's in a cigar club, and he travels. So he
Right.
goes to different events. He was telling me, I've met him in person in South Carolina. We have some family down. He lives down there. I got together with him, and he was telling me about a cigar club and the travel and different events. So it's interesting
Yeah.
to hear it from you as well.
Yeah. We're just our little band of brothers, we call it, just cigar smoking Canadians, just CSC. So that it's just yeah. And I got to be honest, it doesn't matter. All the cigar lounges I've walked into, black, white, brown, red, Asian, whatever. Sit down beside them, light up a cigar. I look over and I say hello, and it just goes from there. And usually, when I'm in the United States, and whether if I'm like what type of person I'm speaking to, man or woman, if I as soon as I find out that I'm Canadian, then we got 30 minutes to talk about something, and it just goes from there. But yeah, it's there are a few comic book collectors that enjoy cigars as well. I know Chip Getler,
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
he's a brother of the Leaf as well, and enjoys a fine cigar. And he's like myself; he likes to pair a coffee with a cigar. And a lot of people say, so Chris, when you have a cigar, do you like to have a whiskey with it, or do you like to have a beer, or do you like to have a scotch? And my answer is always, I like a nice coffee.
Okay.
But yeah, to answer your question originally, number 21, I like to unwind with a cigar.
Nice. That's good. Yeah, I like to throw that random question in there because it
Yeah,
just it's a
it's
good way
terrific.
to
Yeah,
learn something a little bit more about about the person. So
yeah, it's a good question.
well, so what else do you have coming up on your channel? I know the Walmart packs have been a big recent hit for you. You've been doing a lot
Yeah.
of those.
So yeah, I do have some Walmart packs I'm going to be opening in the very near future. Check that out. Uh, Something I'm looking very forward to is I have a pair of mystery boxes coming from Ireland.
Oh
And
wow.
inside those mystery boxes is an opportunity to get an Amazing Fantasy 15.
Oh
So I'm hoping fingers crossed,
Yes.
to hit the Holy Grail. For my own personal holy grail of all grails. And we'll see what those mystery boxes have. So it's some Monday in the next couple weeks, I will be opening those mystery boxes from Ireland that have the opportunity to try and win an AF-15. With that being said, I often spend some time on other people's channels, as you know. Every Saturday, you can catch me on Rob's Fat Stacks of Comics, his channel for his flagship show, Slab Hub. Uh, I know that you're aware of it.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
great show, great show. It's
uh,
eye candy for an hour,
it's a lot of eye
and
candy,
I'm not
and
talking about Rob and Chris.
no. I do drool often on that show, but yeah, you'll catch. I'll be on that show every Saturday afternoons, Sunday nights. I'm on Mark Legion of Legion of Comics, his Sunday night show at Week's End, where we take a spoiler look back at everything that happened that previous week in pop culture. Sundays, usually in the afternoons, I drop a show that I'm pretty proud of. It still goes on. Two cool guys, two hot picks for both Mark and myself. We like to talk about the fact that we're two second generation comic book readers, and we like to talk about one pick that we consider that you may want to take a look at for the upcoming new comic book day. So yeah, that's about it, Brian. And every Wednesday, of course, usually in the evenings around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I go live with an open invitation for a new comic book day for a little show I like to call Show Us What You Got. And as always, Brian, you're always welcome on that show. And anyone who's watching, if you participate in New Comic Book Day or even just got some books recently that you're really excited about, reach out to me on Instagram and I'll send you the link and you can join the panel and show us what you got.
There's a lot of activity on Wednesdays. New Comic Book Day.
Oh,
Everybody's
yeah.
showing off all the good stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. All right.
Yeah.
Well, links are down below, both to Chris's YouTube channel and Instagram. So if you're not familiar with Chris, please go, sub him up, follow him on Instagram. Great channel. Like I said, my first introduction was this guy sitting in his car at lunchtime, so excited about his comic books, and I'm just like, what is this guy doing? So,
Yeah.
and followed
Yeah.
him ever since. And so it's great to chat with you and get to know you a little bit better. And yeah, hopefully, I was, there's a couple cons coming up here locally that I'm going to try to hit, and hopefully going to be able to meet some of the other community members, hopefully this year. So
Cool. I hope that works. I hope that one day, Brian, you and I can cross paths and we can shake hands, my man.
I hope
But
so
with
too.
that being said, I have to point out what you're doing is incredibly kind. At the helm for the Comic Book Community Awards, that you're doing this, with your own hard-earned money, and that you're trying to spotlight other. To me, at the core of it all, is that you're spotlighting other people's channels and trying to recognize some of the wonderful things that's going on in the comic book community, regardless if they're winners or not, but just spotlighting that and trying to bring attention, to some smaller channels and channels between 100 subscribers and 1,000, and obviously then the big boys stuff as well. I think that's a wonderful thing. So, my man, kudos to you for being, at the heart of that and coming up with that fabulous idea. If you ever need help, my man, just reach out. I have your back. If you want to do like a Canadian version, I'm always
Well,
available.
thank you, for that. But yeah, I'm one of the things as we get further along this year, once the finalists get announced, I want to do a panel,
Yeah.
with whoever wants to come on and just discuss the channels. Just another way to highlight all of the channels, because yeah, again, like you said, there's only one winner, but it's more about highlighting and making others aware of maybe channels that they're not aware of, and just celebrating the community. There's so much
Yeah.
great, entertainment. I mean, you look at, like you said, the Slab Hub show. It's eye candy for an hour of books that you may never ever get to see or own or touch.
Right.
Freaky Louie, the entertainment, the
Right.
writing of comedy and skits, and
Right.
we see it across so many different channels. So it's really, I wanted to highlight that, and just really celebrate. It's a celebration of the community. So
It's a wonderful thing, my man. It's a wonderful thing.
I
And
appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's not just, guys like us. It's you have women, people with
Oh yeah,
disabilities,
yeah.
people of color, and people from all over the world participate, like Australia, and Japan, and people south and in Europe that are putting out wonderful content, that are all at the core of it all is the love of comic books and celebrating the medium. So yeah, the fact that you're shining a light on some creators, like, I gotta admit, like, through what you're doing, I got to discover other channels that I had no idea existed.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's taking like the whole grow together thing and just amplifying it even larger, and then spotlighting it, and then having people pick whatever stuff that they enjoy. And I gotta admit, I've sent in some nominations, and I'm hoping that some of the people that I sent on my nominations get recognized.
Yeah, it's wide open right now. I've taken a peek. A lot of nominations have come in, but which is great to see, is a lot of the categories are there's no clear front runner because there's so many different choices and different channels that are being nominated. So it's good. It's good to see. It's good to see that there's that wide variety of channels. So
And I would hope, and I know that you have some other people helping you at this point now with it, and that's got to be the most rewarding thing. That it's not just one channel or one creator or one type of video that's just running away with it all. The fact that you have a plethora of different channels that are being recognized has got to be the most satisfying thing.
oh yeah, no, it's great. It's great to see, and I've discovered new channels. There's channels like a nomination will come in, and I'm like, I'm not aware of that channel, and so let me go look at that channel. And so it's just it's a personal way for me even to just discover new channels, which is great. So, but
Awesome.
thank you for highlighting that. I appreciate that, and for
Oh,
all of your support and everybody's support. I do really do appreciate that. So. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. Like I said, links down below. Check out Chris's channel, YouTube, the Comic Vet, and he's on Instagram as well. So go give him a follow there. And Chris, just again, thank you very much for coming on, answering all the questions. Hopefully, it wasn't, it was painless. Hopefully.
it was all right. It was all right. No, I had a wonderful time, Brian. Thank you so much for this. If you ever need help, man, I'm never far away. So again, thank you for this. It was I really appreciate it, man. I was looking forward to it, and I'm glad that we spent some time together.
Yes, great to get to know you a little bit better. So, thanks very much. And yeah, certainly there will be certainly some things down the road for the Comic Book Community Award. So I'll definitely be reaching out. I want to make sure we have a lot of involvement with the live show and the award show this year. With the community, and so I'll definitely be taking you up on that later in the year. So, all right, thanks
Sure.
again. Take care, guys.